Hi, everybody. I hope that you're having a great week and enjoying the warmer weather wherever you might be. So we are moving along into week number 5 and getting close to the halfway point of the term. So in the first 4 weeks, we had the opportunity to go over textual methods in communication, and we're now shifting gears to focus on qualitative methods, and then we'll close out the term by switching over to quantitative methods. Thank you for taking the time to complete your textual research proposal. I'll be looking over them and providing feedback to you on those assignments and getting you your feedback and comments on those by the end of the week. All of your other grades on assignments in the course are current. So let me know if you have any questions about your grade and progress in the course, and I appreciate you taking the work to develop this proposal. So let's go ahead and get started on some of the things to discuss this week. So this week we're going into qualitative methods and some of the ways that you get to utilize qualitative methods for your second of 3 research proposals. Again, in this class, I'm asking you to complete a textual research proposal, which you just did, a qualitative research proposal, which you'll be doing in a few weeks, a quantitative research proposal, and then you'll be selecting one of those 3 options to work on for a final project. And in particular, this week, we're going to be focusing on interviews as a means of doing qualitative analysis. So I like to start at the end of the term and work backwards so that you can think about and plan out upcoming assignments. So I want to spotlight that the final project that you'll be doing in the course is going to be due on June 15th. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with you so that you can access some of the information here that you need in order to complete this assignment. So if you check on the Canvas page of the course, on the front page of Canvas, it lists out the schedule and the upcoming assignments for the course, including the final course assignment. You'll also notice that the Canvas page for this course has been updated to include all of the weekly discussions in case you're interested in working ahead. So if you scroll to the very end, you'll notice here this final project is due on June 15th. And this final project gives you 3 options, right? You get to choose one of your 3 proposals to develop into a full research paper. So if the project that you're doing is a textual project, in other words, if your project is using an already existing piece of communication, or it's doing something like historical methods, right, where the artifact that you're studying is something that already exists and is already present, then you get to develop a full paper using that. However, if you are interested in doing a project such as an interview study, such as an experiment or an ethnography, that is going to require what's known as the IRB, or Institutional Review Board, right? So the Institutional Review Board is an entity that was created to ensure that ethical studies that involve human subjects are conducted. In other words, before you would conduct a study that involves human subjects, you have to receive approval from EOU in order to conduct this study, right? So if you're interested in doing something like an interview project for your final project in the course, I think that's awesome. But you are going to want to make sure that you complete and submit the IRB form as soon as possible before the end of the term so that you can get to work on this project. And then your third option is to expand one of the 3 proposals that you'll do into a larger version. That would include more sources, evidence, proposed methods, and a section discussing anticipated results. So I just want to spotlight that those 3 options are available for you for your final project, and I'm happy to support you if you're interested in doing a qualitative study like an interview or a quantitative project like a survey that you intend to complete for this course. So if you check the Human Subjects Review, which is linked as part of your readings for this week, you'll notice that this goes over the approval process that's needed for doing a human subjects study. In particular, this is the actual application that you would complete in which you discuss the actual research that you would be doing, as well as some of the potential risks and the designs, such as the interview questions that you might be asking. For a proposal, you do not need to complete the IRB, right? The IRB and those steps are only if your final project, the actual study that you're doing, is an interview. You're actually conducting an interview, right? So if you're proposing a project, you don't need to do IRB, but if you're actually developing this into a full project for your final paper, you will want to make sure that you do so if you're doing this type of approach. So that would be an interview, survey, experiment, and other material that involves you actually reaching out to humans and receiving data from them. So if this is interesting to you, I'm happy to work with you on the steps to do that, but I do want to flag that for you as soon as possible, give you the opportunity to prepare. So let's talk a little bit about qualitative methods. So qualitative methods are about how we try to understand the beliefs, experiences, attitudes, behaviors, and interactions involving people, right? So I like, this popular meme that's gone around describing quantitative research, very kind of straight-laced, just wearing very standard clothes, and qualitatives all over the place. It's very expressive, right? It's very fun. It's very extra. Qualitative methods is about the quality of information. It's about getting into rich experiences about human beings through the process of doing research, collecting information that can't easily be put in a box, but information that speaks to itself and enlivens our human experience. We can analyze, we can code, we can look at the data, but it's not typically going to be presented as a statistic or a percentage, right? It's getting at the quality of human experiences that we can't necessarily put into that kind of measurement. So as a way of doing qualitative methods, one of the most popular types, and one that I've done before in my own qualitative research, is the use of an interview, right? So the interview, if you've taken the EOU course, Interviewing Principles and Practices, it is a great course that gets into some of these in more detail. But an interview is generally going to involve the interviewer or researcher who's developing and seeking information from the interviewee, who is also known as the informant. An interview can be very informal. It can have no structure. It can have no prompt or work in advance. It's just designed to learn more about the person and their experience. It can have a lack of structure, right? It might have a general theme or topic, but it explores it in a very organic way. We have what's considered to be semi-structured, which is one of the most popular forms and one that I commonly use in research, where you have a set of general questions or topics that you want to make sure are covered. But you might use follow-up questions, you might use probes, you might go down a particular path that's interesting to you and learn more about the topic. For example, I had some questions where I was asking people with disabilities who are also members of the LGBTQ community to discuss some of their challenges in health. And one of the participants had an extensive story about a challenge that they had relating to a doctor not taking them seriously and providing adequate pain management, right? So semi-structured is allowing for the opportunity for people to use storytelling and follow-up. Another type of semi-structured interview, and one that you can choose for this class if you're interested, is the use of a focus group. A focus group is really common in fields such as marketing, and it involves you facilitating a group of 6 to 8 people, give or take, on a topic or issue, where you present the group with a series of questions where they discuss, they debate, they communicate with each other about those topics. That's commonly used in advertising and marketing when people are presented with a question about a product, asked to talk about a product, and are using that as a means of gathering more information. And then a structured interview is generally one where you are completely by the book. You're following the script, you're following guidelines, you're answering questions in the order that they were presented. Before coming to EOU, I actually took some time to do customer satisfaction and marketing research. And so we had a very specific structured guide that we had to use for asking questions. So the interview can take on a variety of different forms, and the way that you present a proposal for an interview to the IRB is going to be one that follows and it justifies the type of interview style that you're using. So interviews, it's important for us as we're thinking about research and we're thinking about the research question or issue that we're interested in exploring. It's useful for us to think about when we should do an interview, right? First of all, an interview in qualitative research in general is good if we are seeking out information that doesn't already exist in the world. We don't have a text, we don't have an interview, we don't have material, we have a question, but the resources available online are not available for us to answer this question. But people, including people we might be interested in to potentially recruit for an interview, do have information that we need and we're seeking out in order to answer that question. Through the process of engaging in an interview, you are creating a text, right? You're creating a script, you're creating responses from participants that you get to use and analyze and put together to understand the experience. And through the interview process, we can understand people's motives and behavior. For example, in my research, I've asked why people might be seeking out forms of healthcare and what are the challenges in communicating and advocating about that care. And that's information that is very specific that can come from engaging with an interview participant. So interviews, right? Interviews are allowing us to gain demographic information, but also ensure anonymity. For example, oftentimes the use of giving somebody a pseudonym or anonymous name that doesn't identify them or provide personal information is crucial here. It oftentimes ensures that the privacy of the person is kept safe. It's also important to ensure accuracy. So one thing that is good to do whenever you've done an interview study or any kind of interview research that you are citing and referencing is like you're quoting a passage from a person. And you do what's called a member check, where you go back to the person and you say, is this quotation accurate? Is this information that I'm including in my study an accurate reflection on what transpired in the interview? It's also a good idea to develop a guide. An interview guide is a written sort of script or set of questions or possible probes or follow-ups you have prepared that you get to use when you give the interview, which helps you to follow the script or guidelines that you might have. And it's a good idea for you to test the interview questions ahead of time, perhaps testing with a friend, roommate, or family member, just to make sure that those questions are getting at the heart of the issues that you want to learn. Using clarity and examples is important, considering the types, styles, and organization of questions that you present. And it's also important that the questions that you ask are matching the purpose and scope of the interview. For example, if you were trying to learn how people are using social media like TikTok, making sure that the questions you ask are connected to that topic is crucial. The types of questions you can ask can be descriptive. For instance, asking, how do you typically use TikTok? You're asking somebody to share and describe their experiences. They can be structural. Is TikTok part of your social networking? How is this integrating it into your life? You might contrast things and say, are you more likely to use TikTok or Instagram for social media posting, allowing people to decide among options? And it's important in interviews to consider asking who, what, when, where, why, and how questions, because those are the questions that oftentimes get at the rich details and information that you might be seeking out from the people that you're interviewing. When it comes to strategies that you can employ, one of them is to record or take notes ahead of time for transcription. But if you're recording for later, you do want to make sure that you receive consent from the interviewee as to doing the interview and having that information recorded for later and explaining how that recorded information will be used. Utilizing probes and follow-up in questions is a great way to get greater insight if you're not using a highly structured interview format. Showing you're active listening, you're attentive, you're following along, you're using verbal and nonverbal feedback. Again, interviews can take on a variety of forms. They can be face-to-face, they can be over Zoom, they can be over the phone, and this is not the best, but interviews can also be done through email. So depending on the form, you do want to show your listening and your engagement with the interview process. It's a good idea to avoid leading questions. For example, asking, you're having a great time at EOU, right? Because if you show your bias and skew too strongly, you're going to skew the responses, and the quality of the information and research that you gain from the interview will be less as a result. My advice from doing interview research is to encourage you to follow the spark. If there is a question, topic, or issue that you find yourself really latching onto and you find the interviewee is really into that topic or issue, great. Follow that along. Engage with that and understand just what's going on there, because by following something that really is gathering your attention and you feel like it's an interesting area to explore, you can really gain insight and information that allows the interview to provide that rich data that you need. Once you have completed an interview project, we then move on to the process of transcribing and coding, right? So depending upon the method that you're using to collect and utilize data, there's a variety of resources. First of all, resources that can transcribe, take the audio of an interview and turn it into text. You can do it by hand, but it's a very long process. There are also people that can be hired to transcribe interviews for you. You're going to want to think about the number of interviews conducted and the length of each of those interviews if you're doing transcription too. Coding is a way that you can analyze major themes or patterns. For example, software such as NVivo is commonly used as a means of gathering major themes or ideas. Alternatively, you can work through and more qualitatively organize the findings of your interview into major patterns, or you separate by responses to questions. The big question to ask yourself if you're doing an interview study is, what are the ideas that are emerging? What are the topics or issues that you find are coming as the result of your studies, your questions, and the kinds of responses that you've received? Because by following that spark and following the responses to questions, you can more effectively structure and organize the key ideas in your interview effectively. So, to wrap up for this week, we took some time to talk about the end of the term and the final assignment that you'll complete, and giving you some time to think about how you might want to go about tackling that, picking one of the 3 proposals you'll complete this term into your final project. Again, if this is a qualitative project or a project that involves human subject research, you are going to want to move forward on the IRB process, and I'm happy to help you through that. And we had the chance to talk about interviews specifically as a means of getting into greater details, insights, and observations on that topic too. Next week, we are moving into historical and ethnomethodological analysis. So look forward to that. Have a great rest of your week. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to continuing our discussion about qualitative methods next week. Have a good one.